Hey everyone, this is Mario again. Today, as you guys can tell from the title up there, I'm doing something different. This is a take on something that my buddy Michael King does on his channel. You know, like me, he does movie reviews and stuff like that. But he also does box set reviews, where, you know, he reviews a box set release of a movie or TV show, talking about the special features and stuff. And I decided to do something with that with a DVD that I got recently. Now, I know that the original cut of this movie is really hated, and I know, from what I've read, fans prefer this cut usually. I haven't seen the original cut, so I can't say anything, but if I ever got my hands on it, I'd get my hands on the VHS, not the DVD. But out of all the the two DVD releases of this cut, I decided to go for this one because it has features, and because I wanted to see the changes between this cut and the original version. That is the special 2-disc edition of Highlander 2. Now, the thing with this movie is, I knew before I got the DVD that there was a lot of interesting stuff behind the scenes with this movie, and I felt, yeah, that'd make an interesting documentary. And actually, there is an interesting documentary on here. That documentary is on disc 2, which I'm going to talk about disc 2 first, because that's where the special stuff is. It's called Highlander 2, Seduced by Argentina. It's a collection of documentaries where they talk with the director Russell Mulcahy, Christopher Lambert, the producers, the editor, the special effects people. And they talk about the movie like they did not expect to do a sequel right away, obviously, because this movie, Highlander, basically ends with an ending that you don't really need a sequel. I mean, MacLeod beats the Kurgan, gets the final quickening, and wins the prize, and basically his prize is he's now mortal, can have children, he has the power of everything. So, don't really need a sequel to that. So, eventually I decided to do a sequel, and of course this is the film we get. But, the documentary shows there was a lot of problems behind the scenes. I guess, if I were to compare it to behind the scenes problems, I'd probably compare it to Alien 3. The reason I do that, say Alien 3 is because the people paying for the film fucked with them. Granted, what Fox did with Alien 3 is probably a little bit worse, because not only did they turn down a good script, but then they fucked with the director. First director they got, no, we don't want that idea. No, we don't want that idea. Alright, you want to leave, go. But then they fucked with the director they hired. Like, no, you don't want to film that scene. No, we don't want you to film that scene. Now, with this one, the reason that there were behind-the-scenes problems because the backers of the movie were always concerned about the budget for the movie. If I remember correctly, the final budget turned out to be like $27 million, which, for a movie back then of this magnitude, that's kind of a lot. I mean, the original film was like $15 million, and then you could tell they did a lot with that $15 million. Just like this movie, you could see that the money went to the effects, even if you're watching the original version of this cut. You could see the money went to the effects. But production was going behind and stuff, so the Bond company came in. But part of that comes from the fact where they shot Argentina. It was at the time when they were at war technically with Britain, which one of the people who was interviewed was British, so he mentioned at one point, oh no, I thought I was going to get arrested for being a spy. And, of course, Argentina's economy was crap, so those things combined, which shows why there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, and that's an interesting documentary. And I have to say, I have more respect for this film now after I saw it. I guess you say kind of like how I live a little bit of respect for the Alien 3 director's cut after I saw all the crap that happened behind stages. Same things, except this is a better film than Alien 3, though, in my opinion. Okay, and then they have original featurettes that talk about different things, like the music of Highlander 2, which they mention as a little bit of trivia. That the score that was written for the film by, let's see who did the score, Stuart Copeland. The score is actually longer than the film. That's actually kind of funny if you think about it. And he talked about how he did it, which is interesting. Then the Redemption, which is basically them talking about how they did this version of the Renegade cut, and actually how they did the Renegade cut in the first place, which I found out something I didn't know. There's one scene in the Renegade cut, which is that one scene after they escape from the Mexican security penitentiary. Katana gets on the top of the car, and then after they run him over and stuff. That was actually filmed 4 years after the movie was originally released, when they did the Renegade cut. Because that's the one major scene that the Bond company was like, no, we're not going to shoot the scene. No. We gotta put our foot down. So I'm glad they went back and reshot that. But the one thing that they did that's different between this version of the Renegade cut and the original version is the effects are tuned up. I bet so many people watching this are gonna go, "Oh no!" But don't worry, it's not like how Georgie Boy did. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna call him Georgie, just like we call Robert Rodriguez Robbie, just like we call James Cameron Jimmy. He's Georgie Boy. Not like that where they did not add unnecessary scenes and then like change scenes that were good enough. They left the scenes that were done well, like the quickenings. They even mentioned in the featurette those effects turned out very good. We're not touching them. What they changed was that they did not like how the shield came out. It's kind of a reddish thing, which I thought was interesting. But they actually talk about how they shot much test footage for the shield, but because of the Bond company, they couldn't use a lot of it, so they were restricted to using the same stuff over and over again. So they redid the shield, and now it's blue, which I feel kind of looks a little bit more natural, like a sky. And also they redid like the plane effects, which I think they look a little bit better now. And also redid certain effects of like the Shield Corporation and stuff. I didn't really notice. I guess that they were subtle additions to make them look better, but I didn't really notice. But except for the shield, I didn't really, and of course the plane, I didn't really notice that many changes to the effects. So they're probably subtle changes, but they work. Other than that, it's basically the same cut as the Renegade cut. And it's mostly for the features that I got this thing, like I said. And of course, one for the costume designs, which the only costumes they did not design themselves were the awful costumes which they mentioned, which I had a feeling that was true. But the costumes in this movie are just great. A worthy successor to the costumes in this movie, I feel. And then talking about the cinematography, which I thought was interesting. And by the way, a little bit of trivia, all those sets that we see during the opening fight scene, that was an entire thing that they built themselves. That was not pre-existent like a lot of the other sets. And of course, there's a 10-minute presentation reel that has not been seen since '91. I didn't watch all of it. I just watched part of it just to see the Zeist stuff. Then of course the deleted scenes, which features the alternate fairy tale ending, which it's not finished. So you could see how they filmed it, you know, with Virginia Madison on location and then Christopher Lambert up in front of a blue screen. It's interesting to watch. And the other scenes are like the ones that mention Zeist. And then, of course, the theatrical trailer, which it's the theatrical trailer for the original cut in the movie, not the one that you saw at the beginning of my review. Overall, I have to say this is a pretty good special edition, worthy of the name Special Edition. If there's any complaints I would have about it is that the only actor from the movie who they got was Christopher Lambert. They didn't get Sean Connery, they didn't get Virginia Madison, they didn't even get Michael Ironside. That's the only complaint I have. But it's nice to see Christopher Lambert talking about the movie, and he even said that he actually likes doing movies like this because he could do stuff in movies he can't do in real life, like stand on top of an elevator while it's falling, for instance. Which I thought that's interesting. I mean, that's why anyone does action movies. But other than that little complaint, the features are good. Now, Disc 1 is the movie, obviously, and I've already talked about it. And there's also this one called The Deconstruction of Highlander 2, which next time I watch the movie, I'll probably look at it. It's when prompted. You can actually choose to take an alternate video stream that reveals the making of that scene, and then once that's done, it goes back to the movie, which that might be an interesting viewing. And I'm looking to see if there's a commentary. No, there is not a commentary. That's kind of odd. Usually you'd think that a movie where they had that documentary, they'd have a commentary, but I guess they never got around to it. That doesn't matter. If you guys get the special edition, you can always watch the commentary that me and Efri did. Little plug there. Yeah, it's on the Right Tiger 1 channel, in case you're wondering. Anyway, my rating for this special edition is 5 out of 5. If you are a fan of the Renegade version and you have it and you do not have it in your collection, I suggest you got this. I got this off of Amazon used. It actually, everything plays well, so it's probably from a pawn shop or something that I bought it from, because they always usually sell their DVDs pretty cheaply. Now, the only thing left to say is that this DVD, Highlander 2 got treated very well on DVD. The thing that pisses me off is that the first movie got shit. I mean, the only thing special about this DVD is that we have a commentary. Think about it, that's kind of funny. Featurettes, no commentary. Commentary, no featurettes. Polar opposite. I don't know if Highlander 1 has a better DVD release, but if it doesn't, it needs one. This is the movie that started the whole series. I mean, if anything good comes from the remake, this should get a better DVD release if it doesn't have one. I know I would buy it. I mean, I already have it on DVD, but I would buy it.